All right, Shalom. You reached the He Pray channel. My name is Azim Awath. But first and foremost, I want to say, call Halayim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakach. Double honors to the apostles and elders. God Allah Rachayim, which is great millstone in the Lashawan Tahar, where I learned this truth from and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, the 144,000. It's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem, Harakach Kodash, for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem, Harakach Kodash. Allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. The intent was to do this lesson last night. Didn't get a chance to do it for whatever reason. The spirit wasn't on me to do it. The spirit really was on me to, reflect and be appreciative of being able to, perform another Passover. So this is it says Passover requires purging leaven, which leaven represents sin. Which sin is transgression of the law, and malice and grudges. Because you're supposed to make peace before the Passover. But I even witnessed, individuals who were at a Passover and had animosity toward another brother that was participating in the Passover. And this goes on throughout the years. You have individuals that have a problem with someone, and really they have a problem with Yahweh Shah. And they'll go to the Passover and basically eat it unworthily. And when you do it once, and you never rectify that relationship, you don't mend it, then basically, you were participating in these Passovers in vain. And it later comes out, when individuals, stop doing the work or, run around thinking that they're someone that they're not. But let's get this. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, it says, purge out therefore the old leaven, right? Which we already went through that. Sin, malice, holding grudges, being a demon. It says that ye may be a new lump. because a little leaven will cause bread to rise, right? And that's that wickedness spreading. It says, "As ye are unleavened, for even Hamashiach or Pesach is sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, that old malice, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." You know, you got some individuals out there participating in the Pesach, got alternative lifestyles, man. They don't live according to the image of Yahweh Shai on their day to day and when no one's around. The word for malice in the etymon etymology, 13th century, desire to hurt another. You know, some have a desire to hurt another for whatever reason it may be, man. You know, propensity to inflict injury or suffering, active ill will. From Old French malice, ill will, spite, sinfulness, wickedness. You know, and just because you call yourself in a certain group, or you did X amount of years, you know, it doesn't mean that these foundational precepts don't apply to you, because none of us can say that we're of the elect because none of us are on the ship. We only can say that we're the hopeful elect. Breakdown: leaven equals kamadaza, meaning bitterness, sourness, corruption. You got to reflect on your conduct, and if you're really in the faith, what were you doing when the cameras are off, when the doors were closed, and no one could see? Says Paul saying you cannot keep Passover with grudges, resentment, or hatred. You know, says the feast demands inner cleansing, not just outward ceremony. And that's what it's about, man. It's about you and the inner you. Not just participating in the ceremony. The ceremony, yeah, is beautiful, but it's more to that. You know, let's go to Leviticus real quick. This is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17. It says, "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart, in your mind, man." And there's a lot of individuals that are guilty of that, man. You know, I remember I was driving back to Fresno from LA after, getting someone circumcised. And they told me to my face that they were going to put a curse on me, man. After I worked real hard and came out of my own pocket, to get this individual circumcised, and without even saying thank you, he said, "Well, if you didn't do it, I was going to put a curse on you." So a lot of you hate each other in your heart, in your mind. And that same individual I had sold a car to him and he still hasn't paid me back. You know, but that's okay, man. Whatever anyone has done to me, they didn't do it on me. They did it to Yahweh Shai, because that's what they would it had did to Yahweh Shai, right? You got to treat individuals as if they're Yahweh Shai, man, with the rules of the scriptures on how the scriptures inform you on how to deal with each other. It says, "Thou shalt in no thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him." Yeah, it's good. Rebuke is good, but just talking shit and personal attacks and revealing secrets, and trying to get another man's servant not to serve his servant, that's going off. And then what happens when certain individuals find themselves in the same predicament? They can't handle it. They can't take it. They got all the excuses in the world, but when it came to them trying to destroy or knock another brother out of the ring, it was all good. You know, they had pleasure in trying to, you know, get someone to not worship Yahweh Shah anymore, and they wanted to do it nonstop until that individual was knocked out of the ring. Right? Verse 18 says, "Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge." Certain individuals, they hold grudges for years and still call themselves men of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua participating in the Passover, man. They'll even tell you that they talk shit about you with their woman at the house. They'll lie and say that you're a liar, said you did this and did that, and it's all bullshit. Yet they think that, just because they're in a certain group or, they do this, that, and the third, as far as, call themselves doing the work, that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem Haruchak is actually going to be in their favor in the end. It says, "Nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh." Right. You're supposed to love your brother because that's your neighbor as yourself. Going back to co-pilot, break down grudge, natar, meaning to keep, maintain, guard anger. Yahweh forbids stored anger. The exact thing Passover requires us to purge. And then you got people that are in the world going up to certain camps while they're talking about mercy. And then that individual asks, "Well, what about this individual? How can you never have mercy on him?" But it's not just Esau. It also applies to you Israelites, man. The Most High is going to give no mercy to those who show no mercy. That's why, I'll try to make it a point to, make things right, whether it's in or out. side of the truth. I don't owe anyone except for, my parents, maybe. I don't have no ill will toward anyone because my action shows that I did everything that I could possibly do to help brothers in their walk. And I'm confident that, when the tape plays back, everyone's going to see it. It says this is a commandment specifically to Yasha Allah. So let's go to St. Matthew. And it starts at personal relationships. St. Matthew chapter 5, verse 21, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, which it really should be murder. And whosoever shall murder shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. Right. So if you're angry with someone for nothing and you just want to see him destroyed for whatever reason, even if that individual has asked for forgiveness, then you're in danger of the judgment, right? And whosoever shall say to his brother Raka or Raka shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hell fire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother have aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way first. And go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. And how many of you have actually did that? Because a lot of people talk about the scriptures and, they believe in the scriptures, but not many walk according to the scriptures. Let's read it in the NLT. Verse 21, it says, you have heard that our ancestors were told you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. It's not good to be angry. It's not good to try to get even. It's not good to not take the low, right? It says, if you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell, right? And hey, for 13 plus years and behind my back, when I was even in Great Millstone, people were putting curses on me, you know. It says, so if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to the Most High. So whatever problem you have with someone, you have to make it right with them before you bring a gift to the altar or make a sacrifice. Going back to co-pilot breakdown, before offering a gift which includes holiday observance, You must repair the relationship. Passover is a covenant meal. You cannot sit at Yahweh Shah's table with hatred in your chest. And a big part of the reason why I forgave and let go is because, at that time, individuals were just young in the truth, you know, and it was a different time period back then, 16 years ago, than it is now in 2026. This is First Corinthians chapter 11, verse 25. It says, after the same manner, also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which the blood represents the understanding. This do ye as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show Yahweh's death till he come. Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of Yahweh unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of Yahweh. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. Even individuals that haven't been doing no videos, man. And you have months, of space in which you ain't do nothing, man. And then you come to the Passover, you're eating the Passover unworthily, right? It says, for he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning Yahweh's body, right? So going back to Copilot, examine equals dokomezo, meaning to test, scrutinize, prove genuine. Before Passover, Israel must check grudges, bitterness, unresolved conflict, hidden hatred, envy, pride. This is spiritual house cleaning. Just as you were to clean your house of all leaven, man, you also got to clean your abode, your spirit's abode from leaven, right? This is 1 John chapter 3, verse 15. It says, whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him, right? Breakdown. Hatred equals internal violence. You cannot approach Basak with the spirit of Cain. Yahweh sees hatred as bloodshed in the heart, you know? Let's go to Exodus. Exodus chapter 12, verse 13. It says, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Martazarium, which was the Mizraim during that time, but this time is America. All right. Going back to co-pilot breakdown, Israel was spared not because we were perfect, but because Yahweh showed mercy. Therefore, we must show mercy to each other. Holding grudges contradicts the entire meaning of Passover, right? This is Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Sirach, chapter 28, verse 1. It says, "He that revengeth shall find vengeance from Yahweh Shah, and he will surely keep his sins in remembrance. Forgive thy neighbor the hurt that he hath done unto thee, so shall thy sins also be forgiven when thou prayest." Right? Because, you ask for forgiveness every time you pray the Paliyah, Yahweh Shah's Paliyah, the Lord's Prayer. It says, "One man beareth hatred against another, and doth he seek pardon from Yahweh Shah? He showeth no mercy to a man." And these are written for a reason, because they were going to take place. "Which is like himself, and doth he ask forgiveness of his own sins? If he that is but flesh nourish hatred, who will entreat for pardon of his sins?" Right? "Remember thy end, and let enmity cease. Remember corruption and death. Abide in the commandments. Remember the commandments, and bear no malice to thy neighbor. Remember the covenant of the highest, and wink at ignorance. Abstain from strife, and thou shalt diminish thy sins, for a furious man will kindle strife. A sinful man disquieteth friends, and maketh debate among them that be at peace. As the matter of the fire is, so it burneth. And as a man's strength is, so is his wrath. And according to his riches, his anger riseth. And the stronger they are which contend, the more they be inflamed." You know? So going to the breakdown, it says, Sirach makes it plain, if you want mercy, you must give mercy. All right? "If you hold grudges, Yahweh will hold your sins against you." Passover is the worst time to carry hatred, right? Going back to Exodus chapter 12, verse 14. It says, "And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by ordinance forever." Right? Break down memorials of car, meaning to remember, to call to mind. How many Israelites actually participated in the Pesach last night, in America. And, it just so happens that even the Passover that, these heathens do, it was last night as well, man. It says, "We remember unity, deliverance, obedience, mercy. Hatred breaks unity, grudges break obedience, bitterness breaks mercy." So going over keywords, Uh, Passover, Pasak, to pass over, spare, protect. Leaven, Kamataza, corruption, bitterness. Grudge, Natar, to guard anger, keep resentment. Brother, Ak, fellow Israelite. Mercy, Kasad, loving kindness, covenant, loyalty. And that's the reason why, this is part of the reason why I didn't even participate in the Passover on time last year, man. You know, I felt like I had some malice, leaven, you know, and I'm apologized to an individual, and then I kept the Passover a month later, on top of the fact that I wasn't in, you know, the location to perform the Passover in that time, man. Right? It says these words show the spiritual mechanics behind the command. It says Passover is a serious time, not a party. Judgment begins with Israel. Yahweh is purging his house before he purges the world. Grudges, hatred, and malice are spiritual leaven, and Yahweh will not pass over those who refuse to purge it. As Jacob's trouble intensifies, unity among the elect becomes even more critical. The Passover is a rehearsal for the final deliverance, and only the clean hearted will be covered. Final teaching point: Passover is not just about lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread. It's about cleansing the heart, repairing relationships, removing bitterness, forgiving offenses, walking in mercy, approaching Yahweh with sincerity. You cannot enter Passover with old leaven, especially the leaven of grudges. Right. So, I mean, I believe that there's a lot of individuals throughout the years who participated in the Passover and they had leaven, they had hatred in their heart for even individuals that were there. You know, and I remember one Passover, I saw the individual's whole countenance change. And then after that, it was all downhill from there, you know? So it happens. So with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect was edified. And I'm going to say, Shabbat Shalom.